The most damaging lies aren't told with words, but with behaviors that contradict them. What people cannot express openly, they reveal through subtle inconsistencies between what they say and what they do. This is how the shadow speaks. Why? You ever been in a conversation with someone who seemed perfectly pleasant on the surface, smiling, nodding, saying all the appropriate things, yet something in your gut told you something was off? You couldn't quite explain it, but their energy felt wrong. It wasn't what they said, but how they said it. A certain stiffness in their voice, a coldness behind their eyes, a sense that their friendliness was merely performance. That primal intuition, whispering, "This person isn't as genuine as they appear," isn't just paranoia, it's your emotional intelligence at work. Renowned psychologist Carl Jung would describe this phenomenon as encountering someone's shadow, the unconscious aspects of personality that people suppress, deny, or refuse to acknowledge. The shadow contains traits we dislike about ourselves, emotions we avoid confronting, and impulses we consider unacceptable. But what we repress doesn't simply vanish. Instead, it leaks out through passive-aggressive behavior, concealed resentment, or disguised hostility. When someone harbors negative emotions toward you, even if they themselves aren't fully conscious of these feelings, those emotions inevitably seep through their words, tone, and behavior. The smile might be there, but your intuition correctly senses the absence of genuine warmth. In this exploration, we'll examine 8 subtle indicators that someone in your life may secretly harbor resentment, envy, or hostility toward you. Despite appearing supportive on the surface, these signs often go undetected because they're camouflaged as politeness, humor, concern, or simple forgetfulness. Yet when you notice a consistent pattern of these behaviors, it may be time to trust that intuitive discomfort you've been dismissing. One of the most common manifestations of suppressed hostility is cutting sarcasm, not the playful kind shared between friends, but the type that consistently targets sensitive areas and leaves emotional wounds long after the laughter fades. These jokes often humiliate rather than amuse, zeroing in on your appearance, aspirations, personality, or values. What makes this form of hostility particularly insidious is how quickly it can be dismissed. When confronted, the person typically deflects with, "I'm just joking," or worse, "You're too sensitive," leaving you questioning your own reactions while they maintain their facade of playfulness. It's a tactic designed to keep you on the defensive while they deliver emotional jabs with plausible deniability. When you notice the same sensitive topics repeatedly becoming targets of their humor, it's no coincidence, it's a deliberate pattern. Jung observed that we often project what we dislike in ourselves onto others. Someone may mock your confidence because they lack it themselves, or belittle your passion because they've abandoned their own. Their jokes aren't really about you, they're unwittingly revealing their own unresolved shadows. The discomfort you feel after these exchanges is your emotional intelligence sending you an important signal. Trust it. Truly supportive people uplift you, encourage your growth, and celebrate your victories. But sometimes those closest to us do exactly the opposite, though in ways subtle enough to maintain plausible deniability. This covert sabotage rarely announces itself overtly. Instead, it shows up as consistently providing misleading advice, forgetting to pass along crucial information, creating unnecessary delays, or generating confusion that derails your momentum. If you're working towards something important, a career opportunity, creative project, or personal milestone, and one particular person is consistently present whenever things go awry, it's worth examining the pattern more closely. When the same individual repeatedly forgets important details, misses deadlines that affect you, or offers discouragement disguised as realism just before crucial moments, coincidence becomes less plausible. As Jung noted, when people haven't reconciled with their own disappointments or limitations, they unconsciously project that frustration outward. If they couldn't succeed in similar endeavors, some part of them may resist watching you succeed where they could not. This form of sabotage is particularly difficult to address because it's veiled in plausible deniability. I didn't mean to. It was an honest mistake. I simply forgot. Yet repeated forgetfulness that consistently impedes your progress reveals intentionality, hidden even from the person themselves. Pay attention to who proves unreliable specifically at pivotal moments in your journey. Some individuals simply cannot process your success in healthy ways, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your achievements reflect back to them what they perceive as lacking in themselves. Every time you shine, they feel diminished. Every time you win, they feel somehow less worthy. Rather than celebrating alongside you, they engage in silent competition. This competitive response isn't always obvious. It often sounds like subtle deflections. "Oh, I've done that too. That's not particularly difficult," or "you should have approached it differently." They might follow your good news with stories about their own supposedly more impressive accomplishments, or simply brush past your success as though it were insignificant. What's happening is a psychological defense mechanism. Your achievement triggers their insecurity, and rather than processing that discomfort internally, they attempt to neutralize it externally by shifting focus or minimizing your accomplishment. Jung would describe this as projection of shadow material, particularly feelings of inadequacy the person hasn't acknowledged within themselves. The person competing with you might have no conscious awareness of their behavior, but if your moments of joy are consistently met with emotional detachment, dismissal, or attempts to one-up you, something deeper is unfolding beneath the surface. On the surface, this person appears friendly. They don't openly insult you or display hostility, and might occasionally offer token assistance. But their support remains superficial. When you genuinely need them during major life challenges, or when you've achieved something truly worth celebrating, they're conspicuously absent or emotionally disconnected. Their words claim, "I'm here for you," but their actions tell a different story. They consistently cancel plans at the last minute, seem preoccupied during your moments of struggle, and their congratulations sound mechanical or forced. Over time, you begin to sense that your success secretly irritates them, or your hardships somehow bore them. The pattern becomes unmistakable. While maintaining the appearance of friendship, they demonstrate a persistent lack of emotional availability. Their presence feels hollow, their support performative rather than authentic. What you're experiencing isn't genuine connection, but it's theatrical imitation. Jung wrote extensively about emotional dissociation, the defense mechanism where someone disconnects from emotional reality. These individuals often appear cold or detached, not because they lack feeling, but because they've severed themselves from vulnerability, including yours. When someone's emotional responses feel consistently misaligned with the situation, ask yourself, are they truly present with me, or merely performing the motions of connection? Some of the most insidious forms of hostility arrive disguised as helpfulness. Certain people in our lives insist they're just trying to help, yet somehow their assistance always seems to undermine your autonomy. They offer unsolicited advice, constantly question your decisions under the guise of making sure, and phrase their control tactics as care. "I just worry about you," or "I only want what's best for you." Initially, this might seem nurturing, but over time you notice yourself doubting your own judgment more frequently. You hesitate before making decisions, second-guess your instincts, and increasingly navigate your life according to their expectations, rather than your own inner compass. This isn't support, it's manipulation wrapped in the language of affection. Jung believed that people overwhelmed by their inner chaos often attempt to organize their external world, including the people in it. When someone can't tolerate uncertainty within themselves, they seek control in others. This need to manage becomes particularly dangerous when it targets your independence and self-trust. One reliable indicator of this dynamic is how you feel after interactions with this person. Do you leave feeling more confident, clear, and empowered? Or do you feel smaller, confused, and full of self-doubt? Genuine support strengthens you. False support subtly undermines you. Hostility that hides rarely confronts directly. Instead, It avoids straightforward communication and operates through shadows. One of its preferred methods is gossip. When someone harbors resentment toward you, but lacks either the self-awareness or courage to express it directly, they may speak about you rather than to you. They don't necessarily spread obvious lies. Sometimes they distort reality. Sometimes they vent their frustrations to others. Sometimes they cloak criticism in expressions of concern. "I'm worried about them," or "I think they're going through something," all while systematically undermining your reputation. You might not immediately realize this is happening. The first sign is often a shift in how others respond to you. Colleagues become more distant. Friends seem more guarded. People who once felt close begin to act colder or less open. That's because reputations can be eroded behind closed doors, one conversation at a time. Jung observed that individuals dissatisfied with themselves often seek relief through projection, assigning their own flaws to others to avoid confronting them. Gossip becomes a release valve for their internal tension, transferring their discomfort onto you. It's not merely petty, it's a form of psychological sabotage. The person may smile to your face while quietly reshaping how others perceive you. If you begin feeling misunderstood, or sense that others hold opinions about you that don't align with your actual behavior, consider tracing these narratives to their source. Perhaps the clearest reflection of someone's genuine feelings toward you is their reaction when good things happen in your life. People who sincerely care about you don't just offer comfort during difficulties. They also celebrate authentically when you succeed. They share in your joy, acknowledge your growth, and light up when you thrive. Someone harboring envy, insecurity, or unresolved resentment, however, finds your success difficult to digest. They may appear disinterested, change the subject when you share good news, or offer congratulations that feel performative rather than heartfelt. They might subtly redirect attention to themselves, as if your joy creates an uncomfortable spotlight. They need to escape. It's not always what they say, it's what they don't say. The enthusiasm you rightfully expected is absent. The warmth is missing, and the silence speaks more loudly than any half-hearted compliment. Jung explained that our inability to celebrate others often indicates an internal fracture. When someone hasn't reconciled with their own limitations or perceived failures, your success doesn't register as neutral. It feels threatening, becoming a mirror reflecting what they haven't accomplished. Rather than confronting their internal dissatisfaction, they withdraw emotionally, become coldly polite, or offer faint praise laced with tension. It's painful to acknowledge when someone you care about can't genuinely celebrate your achievements, but it's also clarifying. Support that only materializes when you're struggling isn't truly support. It's ego management. Authentic connection shows up equally when you rise and when you fall. The silent body. When truth leaks through the eye, not all communication is verbal. In fact, most of what we communicate about our feelings emerges through nonverbal cues. Facial expressions, posture, eye contact, vocal tone. When someone attempts to conceal negative feelings toward you, their body often betrays their conscious intent. You might notice their shoulders tense when you speak, a slight delay before responding to your good news, a smile that doesn't reach their eyes, or sudden avoidance of eye contact during emotionally charged moments. While their words claim support, their energetic presence communicates something entirely different. Jung frequently noted that the unconscious cannot remain hidden indefinitely. It reveals itself through dreams, behaviors, and the minutest details of daily interaction, including our physical responses. When someone says all the right things but something still feels wrong, that's not paranoia. It's your intuition detecting the discrepancy between their words and their embodied reaction. The hands that fidget, the tone that flattens, the eyes that shift away when you express joy. These aren't random movements but the language of the unconscious, trying to communicate what consciously suppressed words cannot. Learning to read these signals isn't about becoming suspicious of everyone. It's about honoring your internal guidance system. When your nervous system registers inconsistency between what someone says and how they say it, trust that feeling. It's recognizing something your conscious mind may not yet have verbalized. Understanding the psychology behind hidden hostility. When someone smiles at you while secretly harboring resentment, it creates profound cognitive dissonance. Why would someone pretend to care while quietly undermining you? Why not simply be honest about their feelings? The answer lies not in their words, but in their unresolved inner landscape. According to Jung, much of human behavior is governed by unconscious forces, the darker aspects of our psyche. Our fears, shame, insecurities, jealousy, guilt don't simply disappear when suppressed. Instead, they sink deeper, forming what Jung called the shadow, the disowned aspects of personality we hide, deny, or refuse to acknowledge. Here's the crucial insight. The more vigorously we deny our shadow, the more likely it leaks into our relationships, subtly poisoning our interactions with others, especially those who seem to possess what we feel we lack. Most people exhibiting these behaviors aren't consciously plotting to undermine others. They don't wake up thinking, "Today I'll secretly sabotage someone I claim to care about." Instead, these behaviors emerge unconsciously. That's precisely what makes them so dangerous and difficult to address. A friend might genuinely believe they're just worried you're overworking yourself, while unconsciously envying your success. A colleague might label their attempts to outshine you as healthy competition. A family member might minimize your accomplishments while believing they're merely keeping you humble. These individuals often remain unaware of the resentment festering beneath their conscious awareness. In their minds, they're still being supportive, even while their shadow self inflicts damage behind the scenes. Jung believed this split between the conscious self, the mask we wear, and the shadow self, what we hide, generates much of the hidden aggression in human relationships. The problem isn't that people are malicious, it's that they're internally divided. One primary way the shadow expresses itself is through psychological projection, unconsciously attributing our disowned traits to other people. A person feeling deeply incompetent might accuse others of showing off when they demonstrate competence. Someone secretly craving control might label you too independent or irresponsible when you exercise autonomy. An individual struggling with profound insecurity might call you arrogant simply because you speak confidently or establish healthy boundaries. Your actual behavior isn't the issue. Your very existence, your choices, your progress, or your inner peace activates their unacknowledged wounds. Rather than looking inward to heal those wounds, they externalize their discomfort by projecting it onto you. Jung famously observed, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, yet few people possess the courage to follow that irritation inward. Instead, they push it outward, often targeting those closest to them. Ironically, the people who treat you with the most subtle aggression may be those apparently closest to you, family members, longtime friends, partners, colleagues. This occurs because proximity creates emotional exposure. The closer someone is to you, the more your life serves as a mirror reflecting what they perceive as lacking in themselves. Your personal growth highlights their stagnation. Your self-assurance illuminates their uncertainty. Your boundaries challenge their need for control. Rather than celebrating your evolution, they unconsciously attempt to contain it, subtly, indirectly, often without recognizing the dynamic themselves. They might genuinely believe they're acting from love or concern, but their discomfort manifests in those micro-behaviors we've explored. Sarcastic jokes, backhanded compliments, gossip, emotional withdrawal, controlling advice, or passive sabotage. The problem isn't that you're too much. It's that they haven't developed the capacity to face their own shadow in your presence. Their behavior reflects their inner conflict, not your worth. Understanding this dynamic doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior, but it helps you navigate it without internalizing it. Someone's coldness after your achievement isn't evidence that your joy is inappropriate. Their jealousy doesn't suggest you should diminish yourself. Their attempts to control you aren't proof of your incapability. Their absence during your important moments doesn't indicate you're unlovable. Their behavior reflects their internal landscape, not your value. Jung frequently warned about the danger of identifying with others' projections. When someone projects their unresolved anger, envy, or disappointment onto you, and you accept that projection as truth, you absorb their shadow and begin dimming your own light to maintain their comfort. That's the foundation of people-pleasing, the beginning of self-betrayal, the moment you disconnect from authentic self-expression. Why not just be honest? It's reasonable to wonder. If someone feels resentment or envy, why not simply acknowledge it? Because genuine honesty requires self-awareness, and for many, introspection feels threatening. Admitting envy seems shameful. Acknowledging resentment feels disloyal. Confronting insecurity feels vulnerable. Rather than owning these difficult emotions, people suppress them, only to act them out indirectly through subtle criticism, emotional withdrawal, or controlling behavior. This is why the adage hurt people contains profound psychological truth. A wounded person unwilling or unable to face their own pain unconsciously transmits that pain to others, often targeting those whose light most painfully illuminates their unhealed darkness. Recognizing hidden hostility is merely the first step. The greater challenge lies in responding effectively, protecting yourself without becoming bitter, staying grounded in your truth without diminishing yourself to appease others. When someone close to you harbors unacknowledged resentment, envy, or competition, it's easy to begin doubting yourself. You might question your choices, mute your enthusiasm, or walk on eggshells to preserve superficial harmony. But peace that requires silencing your authentic voice isn't peace. It's submission. Jung taught that the journey toward psychological wholeness involves not only recognizing others' shadows, but confronting our own need for universal approval. You don't need to challenge every passive-aggressive comment. You don't need to prove your worth to someone committed to misunderstanding you. What you need is clarity and boundaries. First, trust your intuition. If someone's presence consistently leaves you feeling drained, diminished, or on guard, believe what your body is communicating. The conscious mind can be manipulated through gaslighting and rationalization, but the nervous system registers emotional truth. Learn to honor that quiet inner signal that whispers, "Something's not right here." Second, establish emotional boundaries. Not every relationship deserves complete access to your inner world. If someone's presence erodes your confidence or peace, it's entirely appropriate to create distance, even if they've been in your life for years. Loyalty should never come at the expense of your well-being. Creating boundaries doesn't require dramatic confrontations or accusations. Sometimes the most powerful response is quiet detachment, consciously choosing to no longer invest your emotional energy, time, or vulnerability in someone who has demonstrated they cannot hold these gifts with care. Most importantly, resist the temptation to diminish yourself. Your authentic growth will inevitably trigger unhealed aspects in others. That's not your responsibility to manage. Your personal expansion, joy, and boundaries may indeed feel threatening to someone trapped in their own shadow, but your purpose isn't to become smaller. Your purpose is to become whole. You can observe someone's envy without internalizing it. You can notice the coldness in their tone while maintaining your warmth. You can recognize their hidden hostility without mirroring it. That is psychological strength. That is consciousness. And that is the path toward authentic connection with yourself and with others, capable of celebrating the full spectrum of your being. Ultimately, you cannot be responsible for the shadows others refuse to face. You are, however, responsible for protecting your energy, honoring your intuition, and walking away from relationships that demand self-betrayal as the price of connection. True relationship begins with truth, and the first truth you must honor is your own.